So Kitty did really well, and thanks Steve. I found the Mora kind of interesting because I actually have a Mora survival knife with the, and this is a Mora. I have a Mora survival knife with the fire steel in the handle and it works just great. So that was kind of interesting. I had made sure that all the gear would work for Kitty if she did it right beforehand, and I could not get this to ignite, and I thought that was kind of Anybody know why? Is it the steel? Made in Sweden, carbon steel. Not going. In fact, it's a great knife. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just kind of wondering why this one won't work with the fire steel. What are we doing wrong? Are we doing anything wrong? So, complacency in terms of making fire is rampant. People will use, like we did there, alcohol-based accelerants, hand rubs, and they will use expensive packets of Instafire. They will use cotton wool soaked in petroleum jelly, all of that stuff. Now, unless you live near an oil refinery or you live near an oil producing area, given long enough in SHTF, you won't have petroleum to accelerate. So complacency with fire, for me, is first off believing that your techniques and your materials will always be there for you and you'll be able to use them as you wish to. And that for large amounts of time is true. I'm pretty confident now. I haven't done a lot of it, but I'm pretty confident I can start a fire with Bic, match and a ferro rod. I am going to work probably next in the winter, I think I might try it, with solar ignition. But the complacency factor is we almost always use an accelerant, and in most conditions of survival you should probably be using an accelerant. So, you know, you can have your glass cleaner, your hand sanitizer, cotton wool, petroleum, but petroleum won't be available to you in a long-term grid down that goes on for several years. And at that point you have to ask yourself, do I have enough Bics to get through this in the long term? Do I have enough matches stored away? And the most important complacency factor of them all is, if I'm dead or disabled, can Kitty make fire? So people don't want to do as much of prepping as maybe I do. Kitty doesn't. She enjoys it around the edges. But it's important once in a while to bully your spouse and your family into having a little go at some part of the prepping experience. Because let's be honest here, the biggest complacency we've got is our own survival. And you might not make it for various reasons. So for fire kits, a survival fire kit going into the wilderness should be dry tinder, natural or unnatural. Cotton wool's fine with the petroleum. Hand sanitizer, because you should always have hand sanitizer or glass cleaner. And matches that are waterproof and stormproof. You don't need a lot of them because it's a survival situation. And a Bic or two, and keep them dry. Make sure they're in double bags, make sure they're in a box, make sure they're going to be dry, make sure they're going to be accessible. That's really all you need. The survival kits we're seeing online for fire, the fire kit, is going crazy. You know, this is a heavy instrument. I do not need this in a survival situation. I need a couple of Bics. Long term, no society, having something like this is an awesome product, and I'm definitely glad I've got it, but it's still a product. And over time this will wear down and fail. So be able to create light from sunlight is an essential skill. Being able to keep fires going is a skill I do not have, but I think it's a really critical fire skill. What I mean by that is knowing the difference between hardwood and softwood, being able to store and gather enough wood so the wood is completely dry before you use it, to know how to put logs into a fire pit or into a stove or into a wood furnace, and that's going to burn unaided for a day or two. That's going to be critical skills. Using a ferro rod is not a critical skill. It's a fun skill. Totally a fun skill. But it's not a critical skill. Having Having these in abundance and knowing how they work and keeping them dry and functional is a much better skill. Having basic toilet paper tinder is a critical skill. Sure, birch, pine and all the rest of it's there and we would be using that. But the critical part of the skill is actually to make a fire, not how you're making the fire. And as you saw with Kitty there, I will, not in the near future, but I will get her to do this again. And the reason I'll get her to do it again, but not in the near future, I don't want her to have a bad experience. I want her to feel good about trying the skill. She got the fire going. I didn't take this off her. I took it off her once or twice just to verify various things, because the Mora, this version of the Mora, is producing no sparks at all. So it must be the steel. That's unfortunate, but it's not in any way a detachment. It's a damn good knife, and I'm really happy she's got it. It fits nice in the sheath, it's light, it fits a hand grate, it's wonderful. In a survival situation or a long-term SHTF, I wanted to have Bics. This is nice, this is essential. And I know people disagree with that, and that's fine. But for the average person who's not a prepper or a bushcrafter or who camps a lot, they're going to be SOL when they start to use one of these. As I said, when I first started to use one of these, see this? I went like this because I thought it went like that, and then it immediately becomes unstable. And I went like this, all the way down it. You can see the grooves. It took me a while to realise stable doesn't move, it moves, even pressure. And the first time Kitty did it, she decided to do it when we were camping. I wandered off to do something because I was about to start the fire. She thought she'd impress me, and she did impress me. She went like that for a long time, and it really messed up the blade. And that was fine because I had to practice getting the blade repaired, and that's also a good skill. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot. Getting a fire, keeping it going. They're complacents for a lot of us. There's areas there where we can look at harsher. The third area, of course, is dealing with fires you don't want. That's all for me. Au revoir.